We are live. Hello and welcome to Passion Speak, where we give those with a passion a platform to speak. Our goal is to enlighten and inspire with the stories of people who have passion. My name is Sandra Jennings, and thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe and comment on this judgment-free live that we have going here. So my guest this evening gives me an honor to introduce Reverend Charles Hudson. We call him Charlie because we went to school together. He was born in Louisiana. He attended an all-black segregated school until the family moved to Grand Rapids, Michigan when he was just 10 years old. Reverend Hudson played 4 years of high school basketball, 4 years of college basketball, served in the United States Army as a paratrooper, and later earned his degree in human resource management. And then he went on to work in the industry for over 25 years. Reverend Hudson is the oldest son of the late Pastor C.H. Hudson, who served the Grand Rapids Christian community for over 40 years. Reverend Hudson also served as associate pastor under the leadership of his father. Reverend Charlie Hudson is a 44-year member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. And I don't know what is that sign y'all do at that point? Finger thing, I don't know. Anyway.
Yo.
All right. And you are also the founder and president of C.H. Hudson Ministries, Outreach Ministries, in fact. Thank you, Reverend Hudson, for talking with us. You know, it took me a long time to get you to come and talk with us. So I just want to say sometimes Reverend Hudson gets a little controversial, but he ain't afraid to back down. He will stand by his passion. I appreciate it. Welcome and thank you. Uh-oh, did I lose?
Yeah, I think we lost.
Looks like, okay. I got you.
Yeah.
That was me. That's
yeah, we're back now. We're back now. It's okay.
Oh, you better wake up because it's time. Thank you. Thank you. It's my honor to have this opportunity to speak with you, Reverend Hudson.
And thank you for having me. Thank you. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's always an honor and a pleasure to be able to share things, whatever knowledge and wisdom that I've garnered over the years. It's always a good thing to share with those who have an ear and that will listen. And I've followed your show, and I want to congratulate you on this being your 88th show.
Thank you.
And it happens to fall on the fourth day of Kwanzaa, which is Ujamaa, which is collective economics and community cooperation to help us uplift our community. And I think what you're doing is a fine example of people who are using their gifts to enhance the quality of life for the citizens of Grand Rapids, not only Grand Rapids, but people around the country. And so we are so thankful to have you in our midst.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, yeah, and that's what it embodies. Basically getting into someone else's body someone else's ideal of their passion and their body of work and their, whether they're literary geniuses or, musical or artists or whatever your passion, that qualifies for this conversation. You like current events. But before we go there, I want you to tell us just a little bit about where you came from. We know you're born in Louisiana, but talk to us a little bit about that.
Okay, yeah. I always like to preference my conversations with some history, some background, so we can put who I am into perspective, put my experiences into perspective, and we always want to ask a person what is their why. So I need to explain what my why it is I do what I do, uh, why I feel the way that I feel about helping others. And so when I talk about my past, it has to start from my birthplace. My birthplace in Rayville, Louisiana, which is a small town in northern Louisiana. At the time I was born, I think the population might have been about maybe 4,500 people, if that many. The largest metropolitan area near there is Monroe, Louisiana. Some of you may have heard of that, or Shreveport.
Mm-hmm.
But I was born there in 1956, and I attended elementary school there from first grade through fifth grade. I started school a year early because the home that we lived in was near the playground, and I would always leave home uh, and play on the playground with the other students that were at the school. And so eventually, the teacher came out one day, who was the teacher, by the way, was a relative of mine. She was my dad's first cousin, and her name was Ruby Handy. And she came out and she kept seeing me play on the playground with the other students. And she went and told my dad and my mother, said, "Why don't you just let him come into the classroom? You know, he's here every day anyway." And consequently, they said, "Well, okay, it got me off of their hands." So I started school a year early, and I had always found classrooms and learning just fascinating. I soaked it up like a sponge, just being in that environment, learning the basic rudimentary things in elementary school, writing and arithmetic and geography and all of those things. So that's always been something that I have had in my system. But moving a little further, uh, around the age of 10, we decided to move to Michigan. My father was the oldest of 12 children. His father and mother had moved to Michigan in 1963. As you know, during that time in the South, things were pretty bad for blacks. And my grandfather was a sharecropper, and as was my father. And things got to the point where they just wanted to seek a better life. But my father, he was the last holdout. And so he stayed back in Louisiana while his family moved to Michigan. And as I said, they came here around 63, 1964, somewhere in that area. And so around 1966, uh, things were, still not getting any better. My mother was a domestic. She was a domestic servant for a family there in uh, the little town called Alto, Louisiana, which is outside of Rayville.
Mm-hmm.
And my father, on his way home one night, my father was a member of the Masonics, the Scottish Rite Masons,
Mm-hmm.
and he had went to a Masonic meeting. And on his way home, he happened to go by the general store. And the general store and the post office were all together because, it's rural free delivery. The mail comes in one place, and so you got your groceries and your mail and everything in the same area. And most of those businesses were owned by the whites who own the land, who own the cotton fields, and you know how that goes. So my
Mm-hmm.
father, on his way home, he happened to see a fire burning in the back of one of the buildings. And so he slowed down to see what it was. And as he slowed down, he noticed that it was a group of white men gathered in the back of those buildings, and they were burning a cross. So, needless to say, what that all meant, they were all members of the Ku Klux Klan. So he kept driving. He kept driving. I never will forget it. He had a 1955 Chevrolet, which is the car we drove to Michigan in. He came home that night. I was 10, as I said. My siblings, next oldest sibling, my sister, she was about 8. And then there was 5 other kids. So there was 7 of us. And one would later be born in Michigan, my baby sister. But anyway, so he came home and he was just exasperated. He told my mother, look, turn the lights off. We had those old coal oil lamps where you had to light them and we had the wick in them and stuff. So he told her to put those out and close the windows and shut the windows and put the curtains over the windows and get down in the back of the house. I had no idea what was going on, but needless to say, it kind of frightened all of us, you know. But we laid down, and a few hours later, we heard a commotion outside, and we didn't know until the next day, the next morning, that they had burned a cross in our front yard. And needless to say, my mother she was horrified. And my dad, at that point, I guess he said, you know what? That's the final straw. He went to the nearest home that had a phone. Nobody had telephones really in that area. About only one house had a television. So it was still kind of primitive. But he got on the phone. He called his brother here in Grand Rapids, my uncle, Pastor J.L. Hudson, who lives in California now. He called him and said, you know, I think I'm ready to get out of here. And they drove down. It was the week of Thanksgiving in 1966. And I remember we left coming to Grand Rapids the Monday after Thanksgiving in 1966. And we had 2 cars. So we took no furniture. We only took what was on the clothes that we could carry and a few blankets, and that's all we had. And we drove all the way to Michigan, and I think it started snowing somewhere around the West Memphis, Arkansas, or somewhere like that. I can't remember exactly, but I just know I had never seen snow before. None of us had ever seen snow. And as we got closer to Illinois, we got closer to Chicago, it was snowing like crazy. I mean, it was so much snow out, but we finally made it to Grand Rapids, and we came to my mother's house, or parents' house. They lived on Thomas Street here in Grand Rapids, and that's a story. I don't tell it all the time, but every time I think about how fortunate we were to get away, who knows what could have happened, because we know that there was still lynching going on. There were black men were coming up missing. So we were very fortunate to get to Michigan unscathed. And that was the beginning of my life in Michigan.
And let me just interject right there. You know, they want to say that some people, not me, certainly not me, want to say it feels like a lifetime ago, but like that was your lifetime. That was in your lifetime, like you witnessed that, right?
Absolutely.
That was not
Absolutely.
that long ago.
Yeah.
That was not that one generation of a generation of people is like 40 years.
Yeah.
That's like one generation ago for you. And it just anyway.
Yeah.
Before you go on, we got some guests stopping in. Helen. Hi, she says, good evening, Sandra Jennings and Reverend Charles Hudson III. Hi,
that's
Helen.
my wife's best friend.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much for watching.
Yeah.
Helen is down in Mississippi.
You were just down in Jackson, Mississippi, weren't you?
I was in Mississippi. I went down there for a book festival.
Oh, wow. That's right. That's right.
We missed Helen when we were down there. I remember you texting me saying, get in touch with Helen. And
yeah, I wanted you guys to connect. Yeah.
This is John Caruth. Good evening. Hello. How are you, John? Thanks for watching.
Now, that's my number one from day one right there.
Oh,
If
okay.
I don't have an older brother, or I'm the oldest in my family. I'm the oldest of 8 kids, but he's that brother, that older brother. I think I might be older than him. I'm not really sure. We're close,
Okay.
but John Carruth is one of my dearest friends,
All right.
and we've been through thick and thin together. I'll kind of cover a little bit of that as we go on. But thanks for joining us tonight, John. And tell
Yes.
your beautiful wife Rita I said hello.
And we have Mrs. Carter. Thank you, Alyssa, for dropping in. Alisa, I always do that for her. I'm so sorry. Alisa. No, I don't know why I'm stuck on it. Anyway, I appreciate you dropping in so much. She drops in whenever she can, and so that's very much appreciated. So that's kind of your why. Would you? She said that's okay. See, forgiving people. I just love it.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate you. With that comment and me finding my gloves today, I think it's gonna be a really great day. Really great day. So, but Reverend Hudson, so tell us some more about your passion. And you do so much. You work with youth. You volunteer at the high school. You have a passion for the prison system. You have CH Outreach Ministries is doing lots of different things. So tell us some more about what's going on.
Well, it's a lot. There's a lot of moving parts there, but let me start with this. We got to go back to Louisiana again, and then I'll come forward and we'll talk about a little bit of that. But before we left Louisiana, I was about 7 years old, 7 or 8 years old, and I recall, um, we had grew up in the church and stuff like that. I was baptized in a little creek in the backwoods. Must have been about 6 or 7. I can't remember. I do remember uh, it was on a Sunday morning and they had to go down to the creek and they had to beat the water with snakes and stuff like that, with sticks to get the snakes out of the water. That's where I was baptized. So that's where my religious journey started. Not necessarily spiritual, because I had no idea what spirituality was. I just knew that my family were church going people. But my mother was singing that morning as I was being baptized. And my mother plays a big part in my life. If anyone on this broadcast knows my mother, you would know that she was an angel sent from heaven. And a lot of people say that, but I really mean that practically. She was one of the greatest spirits that I've ever known. But when I was about 7 years old, we were having dinner, and we didn't have much, but we never went hungry. But
Mm-hmm.
there was a man that came down the road. We lived on this country road, and I would see men, homeless men. I guess back then you'd call them bums or hobos or whatever. And this man was coming down the road, and he had the little proverbial stick with the bag on the back. And he
Mm-hmm.
stopped and he knocked on our door. It was on a Sunday. I never will forget this. And he asked my mother, he said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I was wondering if you have a piece of bread and maybe, and could I get a glass of water, please?" She said she didn't say much. She just told him to have a seat out on the front porch. She came back in the house and she made him a full plate of food. And she got him some water, put it in one of those old mason jars and put the top on it. And she brought that food out to him. And I sat there and I watched that. And I got up and I watched him as he went on down the road, and he stopped and he started eating that food and drinking that water. And I thought to myself, I said, we don't even know who that is, you know. And my mother explained to me at that time, she said, whenever you see someone in need, she said, it is your duty to help them. If they need food, you give them food. Even if you don't have but a little, you share with whatever you have. And that had a profound effect on me that day. and it affected my whole psyche for the rest of my life. I think charity, of all of the things that you read about in the Bible, has been the most cohesive thing in my narrative as a Christian, helping those who are in need. And there's such a big need out there now. No one person can do it all, but I think it is the foundational principle. It should be the foundational principle of every outreach, is to help those who are in need. And
Mm-hmm.
I think this is one of God's greatest commandments.
Mm. I remember your mother. We have some greetings, and I'm gonna talk. Good evening, nephew and host.
Mhm.
Thank you, Bobby Chandler. I'm not sure if I
Oh,
know who.
that's my aunt.
Oh, that's your aunt. Okay.
That's my father's sister.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thanks for
Quick
watching,
story.
Bobby.
Quick story. Again,
Yes.
all of this is connected. When we arrived here in Michigan in 1966,
Mm-hmm.
my aunt Bobby, who's on here now, I love her dearly. She and her husband and some of the other my father's siblings, but her in particular, she went out and she got clothes and boots and coats and gloves for all of us. There was 7 siblings at that time, and she made sure that we all had adequate warm weather clothing to go to school. We didn't have any of that stuff. As I
Not
said,
coming from
we
that.
had never seen snow before. But my Aunt Bobby and her husband, Reverend B.L. Chandler, who's deceased, may rest in peace.
Mm-hmm.
And they took it upon themselves. They were members of True Light Baptist Church at the time. And they went out and they collected those things, and they probably spent their own money. But I know that we were able to go to school because of the kindness that she showed us. And I let her know every opportunity that I have how grateful and how thankful I am for her act of kindness.
Thanks for doing that again.
I love you,
Letting
Aunt
her
Bobby.
know publicly. Aunt Bobby, yes. We got a couple of more comments. My cousin Jewel, yes, Lord, mother knows best. Yes, I remember your mother. I don't, because we lived, in fact, let me just put this comment here. Good to see Logan and Barth together. I was Logan, you guys were on Barth
We were
from
on
the
Bar
70th
Street.
Street.
I
Yes.
got a question for you. Was your brother Billy Smith?
Yeah. That's my
Get
brother.
out of here.
Nobody knows
Why
Mary
didn't
and
I ever
Billy.
put those two things together? I never put that together.
That's because we went to separate high schools. He got recruited to the Catholic school system, and I stayed at the public schools.
A friend, Walt Johnson, called me today, and he said, when we were talking about me being on your show tonight, he said, I believe that's Billy Smith's sister. And I remember I said, Billy Smith that lived on 6B? Oh, you lived on Logan.
Logan, yeah.
You lived on Logan, right? You lived down the
We
street
lived
from the Sanders
across the street from the
and
Neils.
Tracy Wilson and Denise Wilson.
We didn't live that far down Logan. We lived across the street from the Neils and the Moores and
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, you live right near the Agnews, the Agnew
in
family.
Agnews, yep.
Okay.
Agnews
Yeah.
are like two. And for those who don't know, in the 60s and 70s and 80s, minority families could only buy property in a certain parameter in the city. And one
absolutely.
time I actually counted the black families. There were whole black families in the neighborhood. There was like 30 or 40 of them in a small block radius. And we all grew up together, all of us. And Bobby Branch is saying, hey. So thanks
Bobby Branch owes me everything that he has in terms of his basketball skills. I let him play in my backyard.
All
And
right.
he was a little young guy. Him, his brother Bernard and Stevie, and they would come in our backyard on barf because my dad built us a concrete court, and it was about the only one on the block, you know. And my house became basketball central, and so everybody came there to play. But he is my little brother. I love him dearly. I'm so proud of him. He's nearing his retirement from Lax Industries, and his family would be extremely proud of what he has achieved in his life. His son owns an insurance agency in Detroit. So hey, love you, brother.
Oh, that's nice.
Make sure you have a room for me in that retirement home in Florida, okay? I'll be down there.
Oh, I've seen that. That is a nice place. Um, this our girl Rosalind. She's saying Hebrew 13:16. That's nice, talking about the love that your mother showed. I always remember your mother being so very kind and loving and giving. And she didn't holler at the children in the neighborhood like some of the other mothers.
I must have had extended family wise. I believe I had no less than 30 or 40 different brothers and sisters, that people that just would come over to eat on the holidays. Um, she was just that type of person, and
Mhm,
people who she would, people from her job, because her job was working with people from Hope Network, and she was a trainer and supervisor there. So during the holidays, she would just bring these people home for the holidays, and we got to know them, and we buy gifts and just included them in our family activities and stuff. So she was just words can't describe her. We miss her dearly.
mhm.
She's one of the greatest orators that I have ever seen. I think I got my gift of speech from her. Uh,
Oh, nice.
she told me when she was in high school how she loved theater and stuff like that.
Really?
And yeah, she
And your
was quite
father was the one who was front and center because he was the pastor.
right, right, right. Now, my father, like, as I said, all of these stories that I'm telling, I don't know if this is what you brought me on for tonight, but I like
Obviously,
to
it
share
was.
things that people don't know about my family. My
Hmm.
father, although he had an eighth grade education, he had to leave school early to help with the family farm. As I said, my grandfather was a sharecropper. My aunt Bobby was one of the daughters,
Hmm.
and but he had to help with the crop planting and the harvesting and all of those types of things. So he never was able to finish high school. But he later in life, him along with Clifton Rhodes, my uncle J.O. Hudson, and a few of the other pastors here in Grand Rapids, they later got some education in theological seminary, and you know, uh, many of them did not finish. But uh, he became, to me, one of the most knowledgeable men in terms of uh, biblical scriptures.
Hmm.
Uh, he learned how to count money. I don't know how he figured it out, but you couldn't cheat him out of a dime. He knew about money. He was a self-educated man, and he was a father to a lot of people. And we always felt sometimes we were getting cheated because he was helping so many other people, but that was his nature. And
I
so
understand
we
that.
were so thankful to have him. Being a preacher's son, it carries with it a lot of weight, a lot of good things, a lot of bad things. There's a lot of pressure sometimes, and a lot of times you get that rebellious spirit, which I had. I
Hmm.
was a real rascal at times, but later on in life, you learn how fortunate you was that you had a parent, you had two parents, and and that was a blessing. It was truly a blessing.
I agree. John is saying, "Hi, John. Thanks for watching. It's something how we never forget what people have done for us. Their acts help mold us. It's so true. We don't forget those things. I appreciate your comments. Who else we got? Hamilton Bell, Charles continuing to make a difference. Thank
Hamilton Bell. That
Thanks for
Hamilton
watching.
Bell was my roommate in college. He's in
Oh,
St. Paul, Minnesota. What's up, Ham?
okay.
He just retired. Hamilton, as I said, he and we were roommates in our junior year in college in St. Paul, Minnesota, McAllister College. Uh, he is the reason I pledged Kappa Alpha Psi. He pledged the year before me in 1975. And he came back on campus and said, they called me Goldie. Okay. That has a lot of stories behind that. The reason they called me Goldie, but I was playing basketball, and he came back after he had finished his pledge period. And he said, hey, man, you need to be a part of this organization. You know, I know you think you're the big man on campus and you're playing basketball, you got your own cheering section and all that kind of stuff. He says, but you really need to be a part of this organization. And I said, what is he talking about? You know, what the hell is Kappa Alpha Psi? You know, but the night before it was time to sign the pledge indemnification, he convinced me to go to the University of Minnesota, where the pledge was taking place. That's where Psi chapter is. And he convinced me to join Kappa Alpha Psi. And so I owe him. And he's been one of my dear friends for forever. Since that time, Hamilton just retired from education. He's an educator. He was the principal of a charter school in St. Paul, Minnesota, that dealt with having kids be exposed to aeronautics and aviation.
Wow.
So that's what he does. And he finally decided to retire. We talk to each other at least twice a week. I'll see you, man. I'll see you soon. Thanks for tuning in.
You hear me?
Huh?
You hear me? It sounds like we need to talk to him about his passion.
Oh yeah, definitely. Hamilton Bell is one of those people. I have one other guy who's in Washington, D.C. His name is Barrington D. Scott. Barrington Scott is a trustee at the University of District of Columbia. And he's also a past poll mark of Washington, D.C. alumni. And because of him, I attend the Congressional Black Caucus Conference every year in September. I've been going for the last 10 years. They've skipped 2 years because of COVID. But Barrington D. Scott is a trustee at UDC, and he's spearheading the initiative to have E.B. Henderson, a statue of E.B. Henderson, erected on the campus of UDC. E.B. Henderson, if people are not aware, get your Google ready. Google the name. E.B. Henderson was the father of Black basketball. A lot of people might debate that and say it was someone else and, you know, whatever. But E.B. Henderson in 1904, he was the first Black physical education teacher in the country. And he started physical recreational basketball at the YMCA in Washington, D.C. on 8th Street, I believe. And if you Google it, you'll pull all of that stuff up. But he has been a stalwart in trying to make sure this man's legacy is not forgotten. They will be having a grand revealing of his statue next year in Washington, D.C., and I look forward to attending that. So thank you, Barrington. There's your shout out, Barrington. There you go.
And also Hamilton, we appreciate you dropping in and watching us.
I see my good friend John Covington is on here.
John is on there again.
Okay, everybody, I got to share this about John Covington.
All right.
I tried to get on here before John Covington. He was on like last week. And Sandra pulled rank on me, and she got John Covington on before me. But I think it's because John Covington's beard is black, and he looks a lot younger than me. He's a handsome guy. Don't get me, I'm being loved. But John Covington, I owe you one, man. But he's a great, I want to say,
my friends.
what he's doing, what John Covington is doing in the city of Grand Rapids is fantastic. He has created a vehicle by which Black men come together and read to the youth in the city of Grand Rapids. I think that is probably the most fundamental need that we have if we are to increase literacy among young Black men, women, children. And I'm so proud to see him, and he's pulling in all of the resources from the fraternities, from all of the other groups or initiatives, and just creating this synergy where when these Black men come together, man, something great happens. I was a part of it a few weeks ago, and I want to thank him for allowing me to be a part of that.
That's major. I want to go
Absolutely.
revisit. Angela says, "Thank you for holding it down." Are you a precinct person, a precinct worker too, Reverend Hudson?
I was the last election. I do. Well, let me back up a little bit. As a member of Kappa Alpha Psi, one of our main things is community service. Our founding principle is achievement in all fields of human endeavor. You said that I was a 44-year member. That bio was a little outdated. This is my 46th year. Next year would be 47 years as a member of Kappa Alpha Psi. But we are extremely engaged in the electoral process around the country. We have a mandate from our grand poll mark to really get involved on the local level of elections for in terms of getting people registered. And that is the different outreaches in terms of getting men who have been released from prison who feel as though they are disenfranchised because they have felonies. That's not true. We are seeking those individuals out and letting them know that you can register to vote. We're doing this with the help of the local agency here, the A. Philip Randolph Institute, which is headed by Kathy Harris. She has done a tremendous job. She's another person you should have on, because I have not seen anyone who has worked as hard as Kathy to try to get people out to vote, get the word out, to educate people, to get out information on candidates, to hold election forums, which I have participated in and moderated on several occasions. But she has an ongoing program with the A. Philip Randolph Institute, and I joined as a member so that I could be more intimately involved. And she has set up an office here in Grand Rapids on Division, I believe. And so she's already gearing up for 2024. So it's paramount that we get that message out to the Black electorate.
And everybody who's commenting here is making you Shishi cuts. Hello, Sheila. Good evening. Thanks for watching, sweetie.
That's my high school friend.
Did Shishi go to Ottawa?
Yeah, we graduated the same year. I think 74, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know. All
yeah.
Right. Ottawa in the building.
Sheila, Melvin Tardy.
Yeah, Melvin.
Some of these people, Darlene Gibbons.
Here's JD, my guy, Mr. Ottawa Hills, Reverend Charles.
All right. There's my man.
Much love to you and Miss Sandy. Hey, JD, thanks for dropping in, repping the that's right.
If you need paraphernalia of any type, call John D. Hoskins.
Okay.
He can get it. He's the man with the plan.
Okay. John said appreciate you, my brother. I referring to you dropping in at the school. And some of these comments, I'm trying to catch up with them. Bobby's saying amen. Yeah. And she is yes. I appreciate you guys dropping in. We can get stories, and we haven't talked about, what did we talk about? We haven't talked about C.H. Hudson Outreach Ministries. You are currently applying for a nonprofit 501c3 status, which you will obtain early next year, right? And that's a lot of the community activities that you already do.
Absolutely. And I'm not reinventing the wheel. First of all, I'm just trying to enhance what we already have. We have several outreach ministries. I am a good friend of of Pastor Jerry Bishop, whose Life Quest Ministries is
Mm.
just doing so many things for the community in terms of outreach. He's providing a vehicle uh, for a charter school that's being chartered in the to be named after Gerald Dawkins, one of our
Really?
late educators here. Yes, it will be located in Life Quest Ministries. Um, our pole mark of Kappa, our chapter here, Grand Rapids Alumni Chapter, Lorenzo Bradshaw. Uh, he uh, he is so tuned in to helping others, and it kind of feeds into what I do already. So I'm able to facilitate what I do
Mm-hmm.
through the Grand Rapids Alumni Chapter. As the director of the senior alumni uh, affairs, I'm able to reach out to some of the seniors in our chapter, but also the seniors in the neighborhood. I have found over the years that seniors somehow, many of them fall through the gaps. There's more than one story, several stories of seniors who have been neglected by family members. They take them to nursing homes or long-term care facilities, and they never see them again.
Right.
And so there's a whole population of those people. And as I start to, I don't know what that was. That's Hamilton giving me the name of his school was called Farnsworth Aerospace Charter School
Oh,
in
okay.
St. Paul, Minnesota. So we'll follow up on that.
We'll follow up on that for sure.
Okay. But the outreach, it's just a natural progression of ministry. The one thing that I hear when I'm in a long-term care facility,
Mm-hmm.
or if I work with Forgotten Man Ministries in the jail ministries, dealing with young men who are incarcerated. You know, the one thing I hear is that, well, no one writes me. I don't have any family. I'm estranged from my mother or my father or my siblings. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I hear that theme playing over and over, and you would be amazed at how they light up when they just feel as though someone cares.
Mm-hmm.
And I get a joy doing it. I've been retired now for about 7 years, and I had been thinking about doing this years ago when my dad passed away. But at that time, I went through a lot of things. I went through a period after a great loss such as that. I went through a period of depression.
Mm.
So when people talk about depression, depression is real.
It
At
is.
one time, I'm a veteran, and so I have medical care from the VA hospital. And at one time, I was on 3 different antidepressants.
Wow.
I thought I was losing my mind. I had a period of addiction. I went through that. I went through incarceration. So I know what that's like. I know what all of those things are like. I know how difficult it is for you to get your record expunged. I was helped with that process by one of my dearest friends and my in-law, who's now deceased, Pastor Dennis McMurray. And I
Mm-hmm.
want to give not a shout out, but just take a moment to honor the work that he did in this community. He
Mm-hmm.
was he was one of the greatest visionaries that I have ever encountered, and because of our children are married, his oldest son is married to my daughter. They have two beautiful children, my 2 grandsons. But he helped me with a lot of things, and but he gave of himself. And if there was a picture of outreach, he would be in that picture
Mm-hmm.
because he went on the outside of the church to address the core needs of citizens. And it spread like wildfire. The other pastors got on board, uh, and it was just amazing. There was a saying I heard a long time ago. I read the book of Malcolm X, but I also saw the movie. And I remember the Honorable Elijah Muhammad when Malcolm was going through his transformation. And he was trying, Malcolm had been in the streets, he had been on drugs, he had been in prison, you know, all of the things you can name in terms of vices. And his life was a mess. And once he was exposed to Elijah Muhammad, he was having a conversation. And he set Malcolm down in his office and he told him, he said, a man with sound moral principles and visionary leadership, can change the world. He says a man that takes care of his home, takes care of his family, has a decent worship life, has a core of spirituality. He says you don't need an army of such men to change the world. One will do. And that just spoke to me in a way, one person can make a profound change in the life of an individual or a community.
Right.
And eventually the entire nation. If you have principle-centered leadership, if you have a core value that respects the spirituality, if you have a belief system of something greater than yourself, you can change the world.
Speaking of which, John Caruth is saying amen. But he also made a comment earlier, if it had not been for Gerald Dawkins, I would have never graduated high school. And
Absolutely.
That is a classic example of one person. And I think I came across Mr. Dawkins once or twice, but his wife had more of an impact on our family.
Gwen was an awesome educator.
Yeah. Educator, yes. In
Yeah.
the school system. Yeah. So
absolutely. I remember Dr. Dawkins speaking at Messiah Church. No, I take that back. He was speaking at St. Mark Missionary Baptist Church where my father was the pastor. And he was speaking there once for the occasion escapes me, but for whatever reason. But his topic was simply entitled The Dash.
Right.
At first I heard it, I'm going, what the hell is he talking about? But he talked about the dash. From the time you are born, on your grave marker, there will be the date of your birth and the date that you transition. Those two times. In between those times is a dash. What will your dash say about you?
Right.
What will you do in between those two periods of time? And I think that many of the listeners on this podcast, I assume that they're mostly a mature age individuals. There may be some young people on here. I hope there is, because they can always learn something. But we are at a point in our lives now where we have more time behind us than we have in front of us. Many of us are in the last quarter, to use a sports euphemism.
Right.
We're in the last quarter of our lives. I will be 67 years old next October. And I sometimes I ask myself, where did the time go? But more so, that tells me I don't have a lot of time left to get this thing right. Try to right some of the things that I should have done, when I had the opportunity. We're all given special gifts. My father would always tell me this one biblical scripture. He said, your gift will make room for you and bring you before great men. And that's happening more and more. I'm getting an opportunity now to speak before people and having them to listen to some of the things that I have to say that I have learned on this road of life. And so it is so very important to me now that I try to do those things that are pleasing in the sight of God, because when it's all said and done, every man and every woman has to answer to God for the deeds that are done in your body. It is incumbent upon you. Nobody can save you but yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to preach tonight.
Well, that's all right. You left
But
us with a good message. Let's maximize living each second, minute, hour, day, but God. This is Verancia Williams. I think I pronounced that right.
is she
Is
on
that?
here?
Yeah, she is. She just commented.
Varancy is on here.
I think it's Verancia.
If she doesn't have me on the program for the King Day celebration this year, I we're gonna have some words. But I got your memo, I got your email, Sister Williams, and
She
we'll
said it
talk.
is. That's
I
her.
I think you got a good speaker for this year. Dr. Washington is a great speaker. He's Mark Washington, the city manager. He's a great speaker. I heard him a couple of times. I had no idea that he was also a minister when Grand Rapids hired him.
Really?
But yeah, he spoke at Pilgrim Rest a couple of times, and I've heard him a couple of occasions. And uh, he's a very good speaker.
Now,
And
is that the program that's going to be at Fountain Street Church
yeah,
in
yes,
January? Okay. Okay.
yeah.
And let's just she said that is Verancia Williams. And she is wait. Oh, she's going to shout out for the program. Yes, looking forward to a great time. January 15th. He's a wonderful preacher. I just want to say about Verancia Williams, she was
Mhm.
very politically active and
Oh yeah.
activist in Grand Rapids on the political scene, and so and still an activist, obviously, because she's organizing this event on January 15th. Thank you for dropping in, Verancia, Mrs. Williams, I should say.
Well,
Um,
let me add this. She is one of the founders of the King Day celebration.
she's saying it's oops, that one jumped in. Hold on. No. Oh, Grand Rapids Christian High School, not Fountain Street. Okay, I thought I read. Okay, that's all right. Grand Rapids Christian High School. She's saying. So, all right, I'll have to look that up. Wait a minute. I just found out. JD said. I just found out Dr. Washington is a minister as well. Yeah. Okay. Oh, she's saying we have the Sunday community worship. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody's saying they're glad they're tuned in. I think that might have been Bobby Branch. But I'm so glad they tuned in too. And I'm glad
Well,
that you
these are all of these people are part of my they're all part of the fabric of my life. In some way, form, or fashion, they have all had an impact on my life. And I am so tremendously blessed to have been influenced by some of the greatest visionaries and leaders in the city of Grand Rapids, especially in the religious community. Having grew up here, as I said, starting out at True Light Baptist Church, even when they were over on the west side before they moved to the east side of Grand Rapids.
Mhm.
Pastor W.L. Patterson,
Mhm.
Maurice Jones, all of these men, Charlie Jones, Clifton Rhodes, my father, Reverend Keith from Messiah Church. I used to mow his lawn when I was 11 or 12 years old. The pastor that was there way before Clifton Rhodes was pastor. And all of these men, I have just grew up with that nurturing of the spirituality that they have, brought to this community. And so we are very fortunate to have them. My father at one time was the vice president of the Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance. And he worked hand in hand with Miss Williams, with Verancia Williams, and bringing some great speakers here. They've had Malik Yorba, I think his name. They've had Dick Gregory. We had Dr. Calvin Butts here one year at New Hope. I thought that was one of the greater speakers that they brought here for the King Day celebration. So
And
I
now
hope
I got to
everybody can get out.
interrupt you. I got to
Yep.
interrupt you
I'm
because
sorry.
you talked about Dick Gregory at that program. I remember that.
Yeah.
I must have been 15 or 17 years old, maybe. And Dick Gregory came to Grand Rapids
Yep.
and we heard
Yeah.
him speak. And I
Hmm.
think he was the one who planted in me a bug of entrepreneurship because he said if mothers on welfare knew the opportunities they could have by being an entrepreneur, how
Right.
you can refashion your life. He said, they would not be on welfare. They would be, in business. And
Absolutely.
he was a
Absolutely.
major activist. But anyway,
Yeah.
I
Hmm. And
digress.
that all falls back, that makes a complete circle. We come back to the fourth day of Kwanzaa, which is Unjamaa, is collective economics,
Yes.
community support, minorities who have businesses, who are doing various things in the community, whatever it is. If we support that, we at this point in history, at this point of inception,
Hmm.
we still do not have communities that are fully and wholly sustainable within itself.
Right.
We don't have a black-owned grocery store. We
Right.
don't have a black-owned dealership. We don't have a black-owned hospital. You know,
Right.
we have a lot of churches, but it is those core things that we need for survival that we do not have a stake in, and we have to change that dynamic.
We do. There's a
Mhm.
movement to do a lot of changing. So some of our younger millennials and Gen X's are moving on it and very successful right here in our
Yeah,
community.
that is true. That is
Yeah.
true. Very
So
true.
and they're good. They got to pick up the torch and move with it. Um, Miss Williams says, "Thank you, Sandra, for hosting this session. Be encouraged. I'm grateful to be online with you, and you look fabulous. Thank you, Vancia. We appreciate you." Um, and then Rosalind Shackelford, very noble of you to recognize and speak of others during your time to share.
Hmm.
Yeah, big ups on that, Reverend Charles, because we haven't talked about all the things that we said we would chat about tonight.
No, no, no. But
We
but
have,
because if we adhere to the principles that we talk about with Kwanzaa, we have to pay homage to our ancestors and our elders, and we both stand on the shoulders of giants.
yes,
Without them, we would not be where we are.
yeah,
We give honor to God, who is the head of our lives, and through him, all of our blessings come. But through the visionary leaderships of others who were also guided by those same spiritual beliefs and principles, we are able to do what it is that we need to do to further the agenda of Black people in this community and around the United States.
right. I agree.
Mhm.
John is saying this has truly been a blessing to me. Both of you, please keep sorry, my community. Please, he's saying keep up in the community work. Yes.
Mhm.
We appreciate you, John. So wait, Verancia is saying? We can relate to the comments and information. Good, good. This is good basic wit and valuable food for thought. It is. I know when you're in the presence of a person who has lived through some of the things you've lived through,
Mhm.
and seeing your parents live through those things, that's wisdom. That's wisdom.
Thank
And
you. Thank you.
we have to give that, pay homage to that. Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
because when you guys blaze that trail, you show us how to do it. And it makes it easier for us if we're smart enough to
Yeah.
follow your leadership, your strong leadership.
Hmm.
And we appreciate your strong leadership as a Kappa. Did I say that correctly? A Kappa.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
Brunson is saying we need to rewind. We do. We got to make sure that we don't repeat some of the dangerous things in history that have been done. Um, JD says, "I'm thankful I know you both, and I'm godly proud to say so." Hey, him keep using you both. Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
She said, Alpha. Yeah. Oh, Alpha.
Well, hey,
Oh, wait.
here there's always a backstory. Okay, let me.
Okay.
I believe that stories and allegories always can explain things, that we do. But we know that we have a several ministers here in the city that are members of Alpha Phi Alpha, and they're all good friends of mine. Daniel Smith, very good friend of mine, even though he always harasses me when I come to his church. Mark Washington is an Alpha. Pastor Golston, Pastor Pace at True Light, uh, Jathan Austin at Bethel Empowerment. They stole him. We were gonna get him to join Capitol, but they stole him behind our backs. And my late friend, the pastor Dennis J. McMurray, and we just want to give a shout out to all members of the D9 organizations, not just the fraternities, but the sororities as well. They are doing a tremendous work in the community outreach. Good friend of mine, Kanisha Dorsey, is spearheading the mental health outreach. There's several others. I can't name them all here for the sake of time, but the Deltas, they're doing great work. The Zetas and the Sigma Gamma Rhos, they're all doing great works, and we're just fortunate to have that synergy here in Grand Rapids, and look like it's just getting better every year. So we want to support them in whatever endeavors that they have, and as they support us in what we do.
I'm sorry, I should have said serving the community. We know you guys are typing. You get fast, John. You guys are typing fast, but we appreciate you dropping in, and as we appreciate all the others. Bobby Chandler says that's wisdom, favor, grace, and mercy. Thank you, Bobby, and thank you all,
Aunt Bobby. I love you.
We did not talk about C.H. Hudson Outreach Ministries like we wanted to.
No, but you will see it. You will see it in action in the coming months and years, because we've only just begun to fight.
And I want to say at the bottom is scrolling Reverend Hudson's email, which he has generously put out there. So if you want to get involved with his ministry as well, in whatever way, please send him an email. He will, he entertains his emails. JD is saying, this is deep and informative. I'm glad I tuned in. Great job, Sandy. Thank you, JD. I'll catch you again. That's definitely a great guy you have there. We are lucky to have him. We're lucky to have him.
Thank you. I appreciate those kind words. You're far too kind.
Coming from another political family, the Hoskins.
Great family. His dad was one of the greatest gospel singers in the United States.
Really?
Yeah, he was. And little did anyone know, a little known fact, my dad also sang quartet music in Louisiana before we came here. As a kid, I remember going to the local station and they would record live on Sunday mornings. Yeah, he was a great singer as well. And he was a comedian. He was one of the funniest people I ever know. A lot of people didn't see that side of him. But he could break a really tense moment with just a moment of levity that would just crack the whole room up. That was him. He was quite a man.
I wish I'd have heard that, because I was scared of your dad.
A lot of people tell me that.
Really?
Man, your dad, he looks mean all the time.
Oh yeah,
he was a serious person. Now, we knew that growing up in our household. It wasn't a whole lot of room for fun. I mean, disrespect and getting out of hand and all that kind of stuff. Wasn't a whole lot of room for that. But as I got older, I understood what he was trying to do, and it serves me well to this day.
Amen. Thank you, Bobby. He's saying he loves you too, Charles. That's nice. Keep sharing the love. Don't leave your mother out. She was a beautiful soloist. Your mom.
Oh yes.
I didn't know that. Man, Hudson
Well,
family, great legacy. Yes.
well, I,
And
I know we're getting down to our last few
we
minutes,
we are, yeah.
and I just want to say, first of all, we thank you for having this forum for people who have passions of various kinds. The one thing I learned about ministry, I started preaching in 1997, and you have ideas of what that will lead you to as you continue on in your journey. But having served with my father for about 10 years before his illness, he became ill in 2000, and he was diagnosed with lung cancer.
Mm,
And 2 years later, he passed away. And needless to say, it was one of the greatest losses that I had ever experienced. My grandfather died. Those were huge losses. But to lose a father was just. Uh, Sister Williams was at my home the night that he passed away. Sister Veronci Williams was there,
mm,
and there was a house full of people. The one thing I can say, my mother and my father, they lived a life that was guided. They were guided by the principles of Christianity, and they lived that life. And they both died with their families and friends surrounding them in their own beds. And
mm,
that's if there's nothing more you can say about that. But I've
right.
learned that since the passing of my father, I realized there's a scripture in the Bible that says, "In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord." It is in the book of Isaiah. And what he's saying is that King Uzziah, as great as he was, he really never knew God for himself. But when King Uzziah died, even though he was a great man in the kingdom at that time, he saw also the glory of God. And I think that's what happened when my father died. I lived my life. I wanted to impress him all my life, and I wanted to emulate him. I tried to preach like him in many ways. But when my father died, I had to really find out who God was for myself. I had to see
Mm,
my relationship with Christ through my own eyes. And so that was the beginning, actually, of me looking at spirituality in a whole different way. I'd always had a lot of questions
mhm,
about, we go to church and we worship on Sunday. We go through all of the protocol on Sunday morning. We dress up and we do all of these things, but we don't do anything the other 6 days of the week. And that's where I think that we have dropped the ball in terms of spreading the word of God. The
mhm,
Bible says, go into all parts of the world, teaching men all things, you know, and the second coming of Christ will not happen until the word is disseminated among all people, you know. And
mhm.
so that's where the outreach starts. And that's
All
what
right.
I'm focused on.
Okay. Amen. And I feel like that is a great place for us to wrap up. This
Okay.
conversation could have went. I mean, we could have sat in the living room around the couch and went
Thanks.
on and on
Hey,
and on with the
it's
conversation.
been an honor. It's been an honor and a
And
pleasure.
I
Uh,
appreciate you so much.
yeah, and
And
we
everyone
appreciate
who
what you
dropped
do.
in, everyone who dropped in, we thank you and we appreciate you. And Reverend Charles, I'll see you on the other side, as will I will our friends who watch. Somebody is commenting the last minute. We have to, oh, he's saying we have to live it. We do. We have to live it 24, 365, of 366 in the leap year.
In the words of Dr. Benjamin E. Mays, life is short. We've got only just a minute, only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon me, I can't refuse it. I did not seek it, I did not choose it, but it's up to me how I must use it. I will suffer if I lose it. I'll be held to account if I abuse it. Just one tiny minute, but eternity is in it. What we do in this life will echo in eternity. I wish you all happy Kwanzaa.
Thank
Peace,
you.
love.